Hate under the guise of patriotism must be stopped. The recent arrest of more than 24 members of a white nationalist neo-Nazi group near a pride event in northern Idaho further shows the relentless criminal and violent activities of extremist groups. Now, officials report receiving a tip that a little army was loading up into a U-Haul before local authorities arrested 31 Patriot Front members from more than 10 states, including a man believed to be the leader of the hate group. Now, Patriot Front was founded after the deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, back in 2017. Well, that tells me all I need to know. For more on this, let's go to NBC News correspondent Gadi Schwartz. All right, Gadi, what more do we know about what happened in northern Idaho and the arrested Patriot Front members?
Well, the very latest is it looks like the majority of them have bonded out of jail for about $300, which is standard for a single misdemeanor charge that they were facing. The few that may not have posted that bond could see a judge this afternoon. And meanwhile, ever since those arrests, police say they have been getting a barrage of calls. 149 have come into the police department, half of them commending officers for what they did, then the other half cussing them out, in some cases making death threats against the police chief himself or others. But the chief has been adamant that the officers prevented a riot. They said that it was all thanks to that citizen that called in the tip, reporting what they described as a small army of men loading into the back of that U-Haul at a hotel, which then police tracked down before it made it to the Pride Parade. And inside, police say they found riot shields, they found riot gear, they found at least one smoke bomb, and they also found detailed plans written down to use it that had a quote in there about the appropriate level of confrontational dynamic and how they wanted to meet that before they would disengage and go to downtown Coeur d'Alene. Police say for now they are still investigating, but they're planning on releasing a lot more information, including possible body cam video publicly in the near future. Back to you.
Oh, my goodness. That concerned citizen is a true patriot. NBC's Gadi Schwartz. Thank you very much. Okay, to help us unpack more about these white nationalist groups, let's bring in NBC News reporter Ryan Riley. All right, Ryan, what is fueling their hatred? And I hope you can see the sarcasm on my face, okay?
So difficult to comprehend. We'll never know. No, I think that, it's obviously came out of the Charlottesville attack, and it's a very hateful group. I think, one of the interesting things here is that, there have been these events before in D.C. I actually saw them on the streets marching around the mall when I was biking around with my son one day, and I was wondering what the commotion was, and all of a sudden here it is, a white supremacist group not marching on the National Mall. What was interesting after that is the police actually allowed them to get back into the U-Haul. And, putting a bunch of people in the back of the U-Haul is not strictly legal, right? So that's something that they could cut off for. I think that in this case, in the case in D.C., law enforcement made the decision that because they were sort of surrounded by opponents and members of the media, that the best thing to do is sort of allow them to get out of there. But it is something that you could pull someone over for and get their identity for. And I think that that's really what's going to be the biggest component of this, because the group's strength is in their anonymity. So regardless of how these criminal charges even shake out, now that you shattered that anonymity, that's when the consequences are going to come about. They're going to be associated with that for the rest of their lives. Yeah. And that's something that I think that those individuals, who are thinking about joining like a hate-filled organization like that have to think about that. This could shatter the rest of your life. And that's something that can have a suppressant effect on a lot of these hate groups.
As I said earlier, the Patriot Front, it formed post the rally in Charlottesville, the neo-Nazi white supremacist rally. And the former Charlottesville mayor, Michael Singer, he recently was out and about offering tips to prevent violence from these hate groups. And he told WTOP News, quote, "You have to really creatively monitor the dark web, not just social media like anybody can see." I think this is a key point. So how much of a tool is the quote-unquote dark web in exposing these mass people from doing harm and from going home like nothing ever happened?
Well, I mean, as we know from January 6th, the federal government has sometimes struggled to infiltrate some of these hate-filled movements and really get intelligence on what's happening. Honestly, a lot of the intelligence that we've seen from Patriot Fronts have come from regular citizens who have been identifying these folks, even when there's no, necessarily criminal charge associated with it, working to identify them and then also just hacking them, right? Like, and a lot of information has come out about Patriot Front because all of their files got hacked, and we got details about, their fitness routines and how they were trying to stay fit and keep their weight down, and like all sorts of details about their, how they would eat and some of the weird routines that they had that were part of sort of the way that you join this organization, and, things that you had to subscribe to. So there's really weird videos of their training sessions where they were preparing for these riots. There's actually videos out there of them preparing for arrest. But I mean, their entire idea was that they want to create sort of content that is, friendly, I suppose, to this white supremacist, white nationalist movement, and isn't necessarily as sort of like, a brushed up version of white supremacy.
I mean, it is disgusting, to say the least. Ryan Riley, thank you very much for breaking this down for us and shedding some light on some very dark places.